Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker, and you are listening to episode 160 of the podcast, or you're joining us live here on YouTube. If you guys want to catch the show live, be sure to search MMA on the Rocks on YouTube, subscribe, and set the notifications so you know that when we're going live, you can join in on the live chat, all that fun stuff. So much to talk about. UFC 243 in Melbourne, Australia. We got a fight night coming up next week. I was at some amateur fights, local circuit here in Tampa, Florida last night. Before we get into all that and more, let me introduce my co-host, all the way from New Jersey, Jeff, the Animal Wilson. Jeff, before the people start asking, is the soup ready, kid?
Not yet, Bill. I had to turn the hot water back on first because there was a problem in the gas line, so we had to take care of that yesterday. But Bill, everything's back to normal. Should be on later today.
Sounds good. Keep us posted on the soup, kid. All right. I don't miss the problems with the gas lines. We don't have those problems so much in Florida here because there's no gas because we're too close to sea level here, so they can't run gas lines. So everything's electric. No gas stoves, no gas boilers, none of that. We don't mess with any of that stuff here in Florida. All right, so I want to kick things off. I had to miss a good chunk of UFC 243 yesterday, but for a good reason. I was at a local MMA show, the World Class Fight League (WCFL), to see my my buddy and my training partner Ben Zapata defend his lightweight championship, which he successfully did. Arm triangle choke in the third round of a very dominant fight for Ben. He looked awesome, hit some great takedowns. His double leg was on point, even hit a big Matt Hughes-like slam in the third round. Just looked great all around. And then top-notch Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as expected. From the man who has competed at the Worlds many times, competes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu nonstop. If you want to feel like a lazy piece of shit, you guys should go follow Team Zapata BJJ on Instagram, because this guy is one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. I feel like I do a lot of stuff, Jeff. You know, I work, I take care of a toddler, which is a full-time job in itself. I get my training hours in every week, but man, this guy makes me feel lazy. He's up at like 4:30 in the morning swimming laps, and then he's like rolling jiu-jitsu at lunchtime of his full-time job, and then he's sparring at night, or he's teaching jiu-jitsu at night. And leading up to this fight, his title defense last night, out of the last 4 weekends, 3 of them he was away competing in jiu-jitsu competitions. He did the Worlds in Las Vegas. He did, I think, the Pans in New York, and then he drove to Atlanta, and he did another tournament there. I think he won half of them. I can't even keep track of the accolades this guy is racking up. But big congratulations to Ben Zapata on defending his title last night. It was a fun show. The amateur shows are always a good time. It's always interesting. You get a certain kind of crowd. Little wild. There's usually a fight in the audience. But they had some tight security last night, WCFL. So great promotion. They do a nice job. I believe you can look them up and catch that show if you so choose. There wasn't a live stream, but I think they threw something up later on. All right, a lot to get to here. With the fight. So Jeff and I both had to go back and watch this. I was able to catch the top 3 fights on the card after the event last night. A bunch of us headed over to a local bar, and we were able to catch the Tuivasa, Sergey Spivak through the main event. Well, let's start at the top here, Jeff. Israel Adesanya, who as of before last night was the interim middleweight champion, now the undisputed king of the middleweight division, just a phenomenal performance over Robert Whittaker, who, you know, I got to admit, Jeff, I was wrong. I thought there was nowhere that Adesanya could beat Whittaker, and man, he stopped him in that second round with some nasty counter strikes, some matrix like moves, you know, swinging his whole body back, which, you know, every striking coach will tell you never to do. You know, don't lean back. Is like, you know, day 3 of striking. Like, don't do that. But he did it, and man, it worked. He was able to lean backwards and knock out Robert Whittaker. Not an easy task, especially at middleweight. You know, he's been knocked out before at welterweight, but since moving up to middleweight, he has looked, you know, fairly indestructible. So give me your thoughts on this main event here, Jeff.
Bill, I'm with you. I got to apologize to Israel Adesanya. I was in the same boat. I thought that Robert Whittaker was more well-rounded, and I still think he is, but, you know, Israel Adesanya he made Whittaker play his game, and, you know, Whittaker was pushing forward a lot, Bill, and I had noticed that in the first round, every time he pushed forward, he was getting caught with a jab or an uppercut or something. And it was only a matter of time, I think. I think Israel Adesanya is just so, you know, there's no wasted motion with him. Every movement is precise. It has a reason behind it. And like you said, man, the counter strikes won the day. And it was this one left hook, a left hook in particular that just dropped Robert Whittaker. And it was a right hook that dropped him at the end of the first round, too. And, you know, Adesanya, he's doing the right thing, man. You know, I'm still not crazy about him, but I got to give credit where it's due. He went in there with the right game plan, you know, made Whittaker fight a little bit different style. You know, we saw him throwing haymakers in the first round, throwing a haymaker at the end of right before he got finished. He threw this big haymaker and his whole left side was just exposed for Adesanya to catch him with 2 or 3 punches before he went down. So credit to Israel Adesanya, dude. Still undefeated. I don't see, you know, I don't see him getting a challenge in the near future. You know, I don't know if you can give him Chris Weidman. I don't think he's earned it. I don't know.
Well, Weidman's at 205 now.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Bill, who at the top, who do you see challenging him next? And do you think that they can present problems for Israel Adesanya?
Yeah, I think there are guys who can give him problems. Paulo Costa being one of them, and Yoel Romero being another. I guess the next logical challenger would be Costa, because they've got, you know, they've been doing a little back and forth, and Costa was their cage side last night, and there was the call out, a little childish on both of their parts.
Oh yeah,
which I wasn't a fan of, but you know, that's the fight to make. Just to rewind on Robert Whittaker's performance. Yeah, I was saying last night when we were watching this live, my exact words were, he keeps lunging in with that lead hook and he's going to pay for it. He had gotten in and out, but he was moving in a straight line. Israel Adesanya, you could tell he spent that entire first round just downloading Robert Whittaker's movement and his footwork and his patterns. And that one time that Robert Whittaker went in and didn't get right back out is when he really got clipped up hard. He tried to follow up that lead hook with a combination, and he stayed in there too long, and he paid for it. And Adesanya, it was really just perfect timing. You know, it wasn't like, it's not like he has incredible power in his hands, but he has the ability to make you run into punches. And that's a dangerous thing, because you know, you could have a great chin, but if you slam your own chin into a punch that's coming towards you, it's going to have double the impact pretty much. So it's amazing that he has that kind of ability. And he also had the ability to get in Robert Whittaker's head, I think, and make him fight with emotion, because Robert Whittaker was trying to use the strategy that Gastelum used and crowd him and not give him space and not let him download that timing. But in crowding him, he was giving him space as well, and he wasn't getting in and out efficiently towards the end. And it seemed like he kind of drained his gas tank a little bit too. And that might have been from the emotions as well. It seemed like he really wanted to knock Israel out as opposed to outfight him, which I think he could have done, if he mixed in some grappling and controlled the distance a little bit more. But, again, credit to Adesanya, outstanding performance. I think the super fight with John Jones is still a ways away. I know those two have been going back and forth, but I don't think it's time yet. I know there's not really a challenge for John Jones at light heavyweight right now, but I think we're still going to have to wait on this one and see Israel defend this belt at middleweight once or twice while he starts putting on the mass to move up to 205. There are some things down the line for John Jones. The winner of the Dominic Reyes Chris Weidman fight will likely get a title shot, and then Adesanya and Costa can settle their score. And if Jones and Adesanya both come out on top at the end of that, then maybe sometime in the summer of 2020, we see those two go at it in a super fight. That's kind of how I see things going down. Yeah. So that's what I think's next. What are your thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, dude, I think you're right. I think that we need to hold off on Adesanya versus John Jones. Let Adesanya get his feet wet a little bit more. Let him get more established in the middleweight division. And I think that the Paulo Costa fight, I think you're right. I think that's the fight to make right now. And that sounds exciting to me, man. Paulo Costa is a tough dude.
Mm-hmm.
And he's pretty well rounded himself. He's good at jiu-jitsu. He's got a lot of power in his hands. So I think that's going to be an interesting style matchup for Israel Adesanya here.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think he should take some time off, or do you think we would see that fight happen sometime towards December or January? What do you think?
I think it'll definitely be next year. Probably the beginning of next year, or maybe like the New Year's Eve card. But it seems like Adesanya likes to stay active. I mean, he's fought, I think, 8 times in 2 years. And that's as long as he's been in the UFC. So it seems like he likes to stay active. He comes from that kickboxing world where you're competing every other month. That's why he was able to rack up like 70 fights or whatever he had before even turning to mixed martial arts. Let's move on to the co-main event here. It was an unfortunate outcome for Iaquinta, who I'm a big fan of personally. I got to spend some time talking to him a couple of weeks ago when I was at Longo Weidman on Long Island, and I got to see some sparring, and he looked fantastic. He looked tentative in this co-main event with Dan Hooker, and credit to Dan Hooker, controlled the distance. He had some nasty low calf kicks. He hit Al, he threw everything but the kitchen sink at Al Iaquinta, which is what you have to do. I mean, there's zero quit in this guy. And there were definitely opportunities for Al Iaquinta to quit in this fight. And he didn't. He hung in there like the warrior he is. And, he was swinging right up until the last bell. But a fairly dominant performance for Dan Hooker in his home country here. Give me your thoughts on this co-main event, Jeff.
Yeah, Dan Hooker went in there with the right game plan. He controlled the distance well. Like you said, the leg kicks were definitely working for him. Towards the end of the fight, we saw Al Iaquinta switch stances because he was just tired of getting his lead leg beat up. And credit to Al Iaquinta too, man. In the second round, he went down, pretty hard, which we don't see too often. And he started going for sweeps and ended up almost getting a heel hook on Dan Hooker there. So really exciting fight from both of these guys. And, I think that it's just a testament to Dan Hooker's skill, man. He's well-rounded. He was able to keep up in the few grappling exchanges we saw. And, he's big for the division, but he wields it well.
Mm-hmm.
Did such a good job maintaining distance, using, beating up the lead leg, which I think was a really good strategy to kind of slow down Raging Al here. So good fight from both of these guys. And Bill, what do you think is next for Dan Hooker here? Do you think he moves up to take on somebody else in the top 5?
Yeah, definitely at least somebody in the top 10. So Dan Hooker, again, was ranked, I think, 15th going into this fight, and Iaquinta was 6th or somewhere up there. He was in the top 10 for sure. This was not a fight that Al had to take. He could have turned down Dan Hooker, but he got called out. And the UFC even contacted Al and said, hey, we want to do this fight in New York. And he said, no. He called me out and he said he wants to fight me in Australia. The answer is yes. I'm going to Australia and I'm going to fight him there. You have to admire that kind of character with Al Iaquinta, because he easily could have declined that fight and said, no, I want to wait for somebody in the top 5. And he didn't, because he's a fucking warrior. And he's probably going to take a huge dip in the rankings while Dan Hooker takes a huge jump, but well-deserved. He had a dominant performance over a top 10 guy. I would like to see Dan Hooker and Paul Felder next, personally. I think that's a really fun fight. We've already seen Barbosa and Hooker go at it, and that didn't go well. I don't want to see that rematch anytime soon, especially because I still have replays of it, like, in my nightmares.
Yeah.
I'm like, stop the fight. Yeah, but that's what I'd like to see. I think there's a lot of fun fights for Al Iaquinta out there as well. This division is so stacked. A couple of wins will get him right back on track, but maybe he needs to take a little bit of time off. He's got 2 losses back to back to guys with similar styles in the long rangy strikers, and Dan Hooker and Cowboy Cerrone, and he lost those fights kind of in similar ways. Just losing control of the distance and being kept at bay against those guys. So it seems like there's a certain style that works against Al Iaquinta, and he's just got to work those bugs out of his game. And he's got a great team around him, a lot of great MMA minds who will help him do that. And he's mentally tough, and he's got the right attitude. And I have no doubt that he'll right the ship and be back stronger than ever. But yeah, it's a big dip for Al Iaquinta, because now he's got, those 3 losses. Khabib, which he still looked great. He's looked better than anybody else has looked against Khabib. And then Cowboy and Dan Hooker, and he wasn't getting finished in those fights, but he's taken a lot of damage in his last couple of fights. So maybe take some time, heal up, and work out those bugs, come back stronger. I want to take a quick break from the action here, Jeff, because I have something sitting next to me that I've been waiting to break out since the start of the show. My buddy Jonathan, who you're familiar with, Jeff, the 3 of us laid down the turf in my backyard a couple of months ago when you were here in April. It was April, right?
Yeah.
So my buddy Jonathan took a trip to Kentucky, and he brought back some amazing whiskey here. I'll hold it up for those of you on YouTube. Basil Hayden's Dark Rye. So Basil Hayden makes a really nice bourbon. And this dark rye is blended with Canadian rye whiskey and port wine. So port wine is like a dessert wine. So this whiskey is really kind of sweet, a little syrupy, but not too sweet. It kind of, the sweetness kind of lingers on your tongue a little bit. It's like drinking a Manhattan cocktail, almost, drinking this whiskey straight. And it's got like some dark cherries on the nose, and like some sweet grapes on the finish, and it's just a really awesome whiskey. So big shout out to Jonathan for coming through with a little something to mix up my my pumpkin beer habits as of late. But just an awesome whiskey. So big thanks to him for bringing this back from Kentucky. I don't know if this is something that's available just in the Kentucky area, because Basil Hayden does come out of Frankfurt. Or if it's something that's widely available, I have no idea. But I know I'm going to treasure this bottle of liquid gold here. Any thoughts on that, Jeff, before we get back into the fights?
Yeah, dude, it looks good. I like the combination of some grapes and cherries in there to mellow it out a little bit. Sounds good.
Yeah, man. It kind of the sweetness kind of blends with the spiciness of the rye, because rye whiskey is a little bit spicy. and that sweetness just smooths it right out. So you get the spiciness up front, and then it's just like a smooth sensation comes over you. Awesome stuff. Let's get on to the heavyweights here. Sergey Spivak getting the technical submission over Tai Tuivasa, and Tuivasa looked pretty good in the opening round, but I don't know, man. He seems to put all his eggs in one basket. You know, when things don't really go his way and the game plan doesn't work out, it's like there's no plan B. And that's a dangerous thing. I mean, I understand you're a big, strong heavyweight and you got a lot of knockout power, but you got to have something else to lean back on. Credit to Spivak too, because he took a beating in that first round, especially with those leg kicks. Because what happens with grapplers is they usually have a wider stance, which means they have a lot of weight on their lead leg, and that's because you have to spring off that leg for takedowns and stuff like that. But it makes it harder to check leg kicks, and Tuivasa was just hammering that lead leg of Spivak in the first round. Those leg kicks were nasty. It's amazing that Spivak was actually able to get this fight to the ground in the second round. You know, maybe the adrenaline or whatever. He wasn't feeling those leg kicks yet. And then he got on top of Tuivasa. He locked up that arm triangle choke. It looked like he wouldn't even have enough space to get off to the side, which he needed to do to finish this choke. And he somehow did it, man. He scooted Tuivasa's body over with his knees just to get enough space to get in between him and the cage. And then Tuivasa, it seemed like he went out. But it also kind of looked like he just maybe didn't want to tap, and he stiffened up. Because it didn't look like the choke was like completely on the carotid on one side. I don't want to throw these kind of accusations out there. But you know, he did come to pretty quickly, and maybe it was like a flash thing. He just went out for a second, and Steve Percival did a good job of breaking it just at the right time. But he goes unconscious, and Sergey Spivak getting his first win in the UFC and looking good against the young local boy Tuivasa. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, I was really impressed with Sergey here. It wasn't just the double leg takedowns, man. In that first round, he hit a headlock, and just was so easily able to throw Tai Tuivasa over his hip, man. He did that a few times to him, and Tuivasa, like you said, man, that first round was super explosive, getting out from under him. You know, it was looking really good. He couldn't be held down in the first round. And then, like you said, man, he just emptied the tank out in that first round. There was no plan B, which, like you said, I think that's a very dangerous game to play. And, Sergey was just sorry, I'm having a hard time remembering his last name. Sergey Spivak was just so aggressive with his wrestling, man. In the second round, he caught this double and pinched Tai Tuivasa's knees together, and from there was no stopping that takedown. And just working really well on the ground. Like you said, I didn't think he was going to have enough space for that arm triangle, but he just must have had a really tight squeeze. And Tai Tuivasa also went the wrong way. He went towards the center of the octagon instead of trying to face Sergey, which is, bad move. Yeah, dude. So really impressed with Sergey Spivak. Only his second fight in the UFC, and I feel like Tai Tuivasa is a pretty big feather in his cap here. Tai Tuivasa's beaten some pretty known names. He's got a win against Andrei Arlovski. He's got some impressive knockouts. So yeah, dude, I thought this fight was really, really exciting. And I think Tai Tuivasa, I think he just needs to go back to the drawing board a little bit, and just prepare a little bit more, because you can't knock out everybody. Some guys just you can't.
Yeah, for sure. It's a tough skid for Tai Tuivasa, because here you have a young guy, 26 years old. He's got a lot of personality. He's got some highlight reel knockouts. That flying knee knockout of Rashad Coulter, 2017, amazing. I mean, you could reuse that forever in his highlight reel. But this is 3 losses in a row. I thought Arlovski won the fight. against Tuivasa when they fought back in June of 2018. And Robert Whittaker actually was the headliner of that card as well. A little bit of trivia there. So that's 3 losses in a row, and like a really narrow decision win over Andrei Arlovsky. Maybe it's just time for some lower competition or something, or he's got to sort something out with his mental game. I don't know what the answer is, but it's a guy who has the potential to be a superstar in this heavyweight division. He really does. He's got explosive knockouts and power. I mean, he's got to figure out the grappling stuff and come back at it with a different approach, I guess. Let's move on. Split decision win for Diego Lima over Luke Jamo. I thought this split decision was fucking ridiculous. Diego Lima clearly won the first and the second round. Like I could have shown this to my daughter, who's a year and a half years old, and she would have said like, oh yeah, Diego Lima won. The third round I could maybe see, both guys were, Jamo was pushing the pace a little bit. But this was a clear victory for Diego Lima. He looked like he hadn't even been in a fight at the end of this. He's smiling, and Jamo looked like just defeated. Whoever that judge is that gave it to Jamo, just get the fuck out of here. I mean, what are you doing here? What are you doing? Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. I mean,
Bill, you hit the nail right on the head, man. I didn't see how this was a split decision. I don't know who called that one, but Diego Lima clearly dominant on the feet in the first 2 rounds, using those leg kicks, man. I thought, you could see Luke Jamo in between the second and third round with this massive hematoma on his on his left calf. I mean, at the end of the second round, he landed a hard shot, and then he caught 2 more, for his trouble. So, I've just felt like Diego Lima. I think you could have even given him the third round, honestly. I didn't see. Luke Jamo was pushing the pace a little bit, but he was getting caught a lot on the way in. So I would have even given him the third round. But yeah, dude, great performance by Diego Lima. Luke Jamo, very tough, very game competition. So credit to Diego Lima. I think he may have been the underdog coming into this one. Don't quote me on that, but good performance for him, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But fuck that one judge. Still. Yeah. So obviously Israel Adesanya getting one of the performance of the night bonuses for his knockout of the champ Robert Whittaker. The other one went to Yorgan De Castro for a nasty knockout of just the undefeated Justin Tafa. 2 big grizzly bear heavyweights. These guys were both 265 on the nose. At the beginning of this fight was wild. And then it got to be like Tafa holding De Castro up against the cage. And then he tried to rush in on De Castro. And I rewatched this maybe 10 times. I just kept rewinding it. De Castro did this little thing where he like adjusted his shorts, and then he threw this counter right hook as Tafa was coming in and just starched him cold.
Yeah, man.
I didn't watch this fight, Jeff, but while I was at the WCFL last night, I felt like a little tremor, like the ground was shaking a little bit, and that's because on the other side of the world, Justin Tafa was hitting the canvas in Melbourne from a thunderous strike from Yorgan De Castro in his UFC debut. And man, I would love to see this guy fight again. I just liked I liked the way he carried himself. Like he had his hands down. He like kept fixing his shorts, and then he just like boom.
Yeah.
Down. Give me your thoughts on this one, Jeff.
Oh my God, dude. I had to rewatch the finish too a few times, man, because it looked like he didn't even hit, like he kind of grazed his chin a little bit as Tava was pushing forward. And then his whole body just drops like a bag of bricks, man. He's not moving, and De Castro pulls up his shorts a little bit and just takes a lap around the cage. I love the cut of this guy's jib, man.
Yeah, you can't leave out the short tug.
Yeah,
it just made the moment. He's like, hold on, all right, good night.
Yeah, like, and he did that a few times, and at first I wasn't crazy about it, but then it was pretty awesome, and he was so humble in the interview too, man. He was grateful for the opportunity. He was hoping that his opponent recovered, soon, and dude, I think this may have been his UFC debut. I think De Castro's off the Contender Series, if I'm not mistaken. But dude, good for him. I can't wait to see this guy fight again if he can produce more finishes like that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's awesome to see, the heavyweight division exciting again. And you're right, he was off the Contender Series, season 3, episode 1. It was a TKO due to leg kicks that he won on there. So 32 years old, he's a spring chicken in this heavyweight division. He's a young buck.
Oh yeah.
And awesome. Can't wait to see him fight again. All right, so the third bonus was the fight of the night, and that was Brad Riddell and Jamie Malarkey. Definitely deserving of fight of the night, but you could probably skip the first like 2.5 rounds. Like go to the latter half of the third round, and you'll see why these guys won fight of the night. Because I knew they won fight of the night before watching the fight, and then I was like halfway through the fight, I was like, how the fuck did these guys win fight of the night? And then it got to that third round, and I was like, oh, that's why. They both dropped each other. Malarkey had a full-on rear naked choke at one point. His cauliflower ear exploded. There was reversals. There was the kickboxer Riddell hitting a takedown in the third round. Malarkey had a really nice stiff jab that he kept making Riddell run into. The last round of this fight was fucking bananas. And they deserve that bonus. This was a wild one. And Jamie Malarkey kind of looks like Jason Biggs from American Pie. So that was kind of interesting to see him fighting, because that's like not somebody you expect to be a good fighter. But in any case, Brad Riddell coming away with a unanimous decision, definitely deserving of that, because Malarkey took much more damage in this one. But if you missed this one, I'd say skip the first 2 rounds, maybe 2.5, and check out the last like 2 minutes and 45 seconds of that third round, and you'll understand why these guys are both $50,000 richer. Did you catch this one, Jeff?
Unfortunately, I did not, Bill. But now I'm going to go back and watch it at your recommendation. But I did catch one prelim fight on here, the Megan Anderson versus Sarah Ferrin fight. I don't know if you caught this one, Bill, but Ferrin came out really, really strong, was pushing Anderson against the cage, and then basically the biggest plot twist, Megan Anderson went for a takedown. I think she's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on it. But, dude, her grappling, she's been working on a little bit. Ferrin got up from under a full mount position, but her arm she came out with her one arm up and one arm under. And Megan Anderson did this roll where she ended up in a triangle. And did a great job of finishing that triangle. And I'm not doing it justice the way I'm explaining it, but go back and watch this one. They don't make it out of the first round. I was really impressed with Megan Anderson. I think her grappling still needs a lot of work, but I think she's making strides in the right direction here.
Yeah, she was able to control Ferrin, who is one of the few women who's a legitimate featherweight as well. They're both about the same height. She's probably near 6 feet, if not 6 feet even. So it was interesting to see Megan Anderson in there with someone like that. Ferrin stormed across the octagon as soon as this thing started and got right in Megan Anderson's face. And surprised to say that it was the grappling of Megan Anderson, who not too long ago was out grappled by Holly Holm, not known for her grappling. Coming away with the submission win. And I like how she just locked up that triangle and used those long legs of hers to her advantage. You could tell she puts in a lot of time with the grappling. And I also like how she trapped her own arm inside the triangle. I don't know if you caught this, Jeff, because her legs are so long. And what happens sometimes is there will be space that the person inside the triangle will be able to breathe. But by putting her own arm in there, it creates less space inside the choke. So that was a great little detail that I noticed from Megan, and she slipped it in there like almost unassumingly, like you don't see it. And then she used her one free hand to pull Farron's head down, and Farron hung in there for a little while, but because of that arm stuck in the triangle, there was no space in there for Farron to breathe, and she had to tap right at the end of the first round. The last fight I want to talk about was from the prelims, Jeff, and I know you probably didn't catch this one. Ji Yeon Kim gets the KO over Nadia Kassem. And this was an interesting fight. So Ji Yeon missed weight, and you could see the size difference between these two. Kassem looked like she could be a strawweight, and Kim looked like she could be a bantamweight. And it was weird, man, because Kassem came out. She went for the high five and then throws a body kick at the same time. Like a little bit dirty.
Well, that's how you knew it.
Yeah, a little bit dirty.
She thought she had a friend, Bill.
Yeah, thought you had a friend. A little bit dirty, but I'll allow it because Kim missed weight. So there's that.
Totally fair.
Kassem was definitely the faster fighter. She had a nice double overhook throw in the first round. That was really cool looking and really hard to pull off, especially against a bigger opponent. So what happens is your opponent gets the double underhooks, which you never really want to give up, but the counter to that is to kind of clamp down, and then she hit a nice throw off of that double overhook position. It looked pretty good. So you would have thought she'd have the grappling advantage here, but she had the speed advantage, but she just didn't have any snap on her kicks. Kim was just walking through all of them, and Kim was moving really slow, almost robotic. But when she was landing hard, and she did damage to Kassem and really rocked her. The one thing that was fucked up about this fight, the referee Jim Parados made a mistake here. At one point, Kassem's mouthpiece fell out, and she was getting lit up by Kim, and the referee stepped in and stopped her mid punch, so that Kassem could put her mouthpiece back in. This was a huge mistake. I mean, if the mouthpiece comes out, you got to wait for a break in the action to give it back to the fighter. I mean, that's just, I'm always saying, Jeff, I hate any interference by the referees. If they want to stop the fight, while nothing's going on, to give the fighter back their mouthpiece, fine. But if they lose the mouthpiece and it's in the middle of an exchange, you got to let that finish out. You got to let it play out. If she gets, if she loses a tooth because of it, she should have bit down harder on it or got a better fitting mouthpiece or something like that. You can't break the action to give the fighter back their mouthpiece. But in any case, Kim still wound up getting the KO victory with 1 second left in the second round. So this fight was worth watching on the early prelims. Is there anything else from this card, Jeff, that we missed that you wanted to talk about, or did we kind of hit it all?
No, I think we hit it all, Bill. It felt like it was a bit of a quiet night in Australia, man. Aside from a few referees' decisions, there was another decision I wasn't too happy with, but I can't remember it off the top of my head here. Other than that, it wasn't a bad card. It just, it felt a little quiet. I just thought it would be. I thought there'd be more buzz after what happened last night.
Yeah, I felt the same way, but maybe I thought it was just me coming from a live event in Tampa and then going to watch this at a bar, and they had like the volume on a baseball game or something. I think the Devil Rays are in the playoffs. I don't even know if baseball playoffs are going on right now, to be honest, but it was kind of weird watching the fights with the baseball audio in the background. I usually don't have the volume on anyway, so I never know what the commentators are saying, but I did go back and rewatch the top couple of fights this morning, and I got to hear DC's commentary there. But speaking of being at live fights, Jeff, I'm going to be at UFC Fight Night 161 next week. So if you are a listener of this show and you are going to be in attendance as well, send me a message on social media and come say hello. We'll have a beer together. But I'm excited for this fight night. And it's going to be headlined by strawweights Joanna Jedrzejczyk, the former champ, and the karate hottie Michelle Waterson. Awesome main event. It's great that these ladies are going to be highlighted in the main event here, and this is a really awesome card that I'm really looking forward to attending live and in person. But before we get too far into it, Jeff, give me your thoughts on this main event here between Jedrzejczyk and Waterson.
I love it. I think these are two world-class fighters. I'm a fan of both of them, Bill. I'm a fan of both of them, but I kind of want Michelle Waterson to win because I feel like she's very deserving of the next strawweight title bout here. But yeah, I'm glad that Joanna took some time off after the loss to Rose Namajunas. It was a tough one. A fight that she felt she'd won. And, I'm excited to see what the time off has done for her. Michelle Waterson, she's been a little quiet as well. So I think they're going to come in good shape. I think they're going to come in rested, raring for a fight. So I'm excited, man. And honestly, I can't tell you who wins this one. I think that Joanna Jedrzejczyk is just so good at what she does. And she's built a fighting style where she can use her grappling to avoid grappling. And just keep the fight on the feet and dominate there. And, her striking is just so good. And I think we forget that because of the losses to Rose Namajunas. But Michelle Waterson also very, very good on the feet as well. A Taekwondo black belt. A karate black belt. And, she's no slouch on the ground either. So I'm really excited to see if Michelle Waterson can hold down Joanna Jedrzejczyk because not many people have been able to do that. Yeah, dude, but I love that main event. I think it's a great fight to make. So, Bill, I think you're in for a treat next week. Looking up and down at this card, you're getting a lot of you might have to send the UFC another check, Bill, because you're getting your money's worth here.
I think I've sent them enough of my money, Jeff. But sticking with this main event, we got a question here in a live chat from our buddy Tommaso Mark. He wants to know if Joanna doesn't finish Michelle, considering that it is a favorable matchup for her, would you consider the thought of Joanna being on a decline? My personal answer is no. If she's able to get a victory over Michelle Waterson, who arguably could be fighting for the title right now, instead of taking this fight with Joanna, I think even a decision win over Michelle Waterson is a big statement for Joanna, who, has struggled as of late, but she just found that person in Rose Namajunas who kind of has her number. And then she moved up to the higher weight class to fight Valentina. Another good point by Mark here is that Joanna hasn't cut to 115 in a while. This may be a factor since she's had some trouble with the weight cuts before. Never missed weight, but just had a lot of trouble with them. From pictures I've seen of her, she looks lean. She looks leaner than she used to when she was fighting at 115. So maybe she figured out some things with her diet. I'm pretty confident that the weight cut won't affect her. I think this is going to be a very competitive fight. I do see Joanna as the favorite here, just being the former champ. But Michelle Waterson, she does well in those fights that she's not supposed to win. So there's all that. You have anything to add, Jeff?
Yeah, I think I don't think you can ever count Michelle Waterson out here. She's had some tough fights. Former Invicta champion at atomweight, and I think she's going to look great at strawweight. I don't think she'll have any problems making weight on that day. And Michelle Waterson's very well rounded. So I think she can present a lot of problems for Joanna. So I think that if Joanna can't finish Michelle Waterson, I don't think that's any indication of a decline. I think that I actually don't expect her to finish Michelle Waterson. I don't think she can. I think that if she does win this fight, it's going to be a slow grind. It's going to be over 3 rounds. She's going to have to fight smart, maybe, throw in some leg kicks. Push Michelle Waterson up against the cage and use her clinch. But yeah, I don't see her finishing Michelle Waterson. Even as at when she was champ, I don't think she could finish Michelle Waterson.
Could be. Only one way to find out.
Oh yeah.
And That's checking out Fight Night 161. A lot of exciting fights on this card, including the co-main event. But before we talk about that, I want to get to my boy Matt Steamroller Frivola fighting back here in Tampa next week against Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena. So, of course, Matt Frivola, friend of the show, was on a couple episodes back before his fight with Jalen Turner, which he looked awesome. Very similar matchup, long, rangy fighter. The difference here is that Pena's got, really slick grappling. He's a bit more well-rounded than Jalen Turner. I think this is a really fun fight. These are two guys that are both good everywhere. Matt Frivola, I think, has the advantage in the wrestling department. Other than that, these guys are both super well-rounded. I think this is going to be a really exciting fight for the fans. I don't think either of them have ever been in a boring fight. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Matt Frivola has been doing part of his training camp here in Tampa, Gracie Tampa South, with Matt Arroyo, who will be in his corner. My jiu-jitsu coach, the great Jeff Bailey, will be in his corner as well. Ray Longo will not be able to make it into his corner because he's just getting back. He'll just be getting back from Australia. But looking forward to see the steamroller go to work. And I like watching Pena fight as well. He's an exciting fighter. And that's why when these two started going at it on social media, in a respectful way, I was getting excited because I think this is a fun matchup. What are your thoughts, Jeff?
Bill, I'm excited. I'm glad that your boy Jeff Bailey's going to be in his corner. I got to train with him. I think not the last time I went to visit you, but the time before that. And Bill, I'll be honest with you. Some of the concepts that he talked about when I was there, I still use in my game. They always just stuck with me. They made a lot of sense. So I know he's in good hands with Coach Bailey, and that's going to be an exciting fight, man. The Violent Bob Ross is going to be in there. I think he was injured for a bit or something, but good to see him back in there. I think that stylistically, I think this fight is going to be fun everywhere. I think they're both very good grapplers. They're both very good on the feet as well. Bill, but before we go on, I got another question from Tommaso Mark here. So his first one is, what is your reaction to Cub Swanson, who's the headliner here, saying he was kicked out of some jiu-jitsu schools in LA because of favoritism for the Gracie family? So, Bill, I think we've probably come across a few people who've been kicked out of gyms before, but what do you think on this one, Bill?
I didn't hear him say this, but that's it. It gives an interesting twist because Chrome Gracie is one of the first Gracies in a long time to win a fight in the UFC. I think they went, close to like 10 years or something without a win in the UFC. So, if that adds an element of drama, then that's cool. I think this is an interesting co-main event because Chrome Gracie, phenomenal jiu-jitsu, top shelf. Obviously the lineage he comes from, but also has his own kind of fierceness that he added to it. And I don't think he's just going to be able to walk into that inside Gracie leg trip with Cub Swanson. It's gonna be a little bit rougher, and he's gonna have to walk through hell to get Cub Swanson to the ground. Once he does, I think it's trouble for Cub on the ground. As far as Cub Swanson getting kicked out of schools because of the Gracie stuff, then I think it adds a little bit of fun to this matchup that's already really intriguing as a co-main event. What are your thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, I don't know too much about that, but people get kicked out of schools for different things, man. It's not my story to tell, but I know a couple of people who've been kicked out of the gym where we met, Bill. And I don't want to talk about that stuff because it's none of my business, but it happens. Sometimes things just don't work out. So, there could be 100 reasons why Cub Swanson doesn't train with the Gracies. But, speaking just on this fight, I think you're right, man. I think that Cron Gracie is not going to have an easy time getting this fight to the ground. Cub Swanson, he's a scrapper. You know, he's going to be in there in his face for 3 rounds. He's going to make his life very difficult for 15 minutes. And Bill, just looking up and down at this card, man, there's some exciting fights on here. I'm actually a little jealous that you can go because it's Columbus Day weekend and I have some meetings. I don't have to teach on the Friday before, but I have to be at work for meetings and stuff, so I probably can't fly out there. But man, Mackenzie Dern's on here. Eric
Wait, slow down, Jeff. Mackenzie Dern, who just had a child like yesterday.
No, she wouldn't have made weight anyway. I mean, what are you talking about? She's going to use that as an excuse for what she doesn't make it on the scale.
She does have an excuse this time. I'll accept like baby weight. Like she gave birth like last week, and she's going to be fighting a professional cage fight next Saturday. This is crazy. I don't know how long ago she did have the kid, but it was like 3 months or something absurd like this. So new mother, man, 7-0 Mackenzie Dern against the 7-1 Amanda Ribas. That's a fun fight right there. And then you were just getting to Eric Anders and Gerald Mearshart.
Yeah, that one's going to be a slobber knocker. I think someone goes to sleep in that one. We have James Vick versus Nico Price. Ryan Span's in here. Max Griffin, who I remember I enjoyed his last outing. JJ Aldrich, the most violent 5th grade looking person you're ever going to meet. Marlon Vera versus Andre Ewell looks like a really fun fight. So, Bill, out of all these fights I've thrown at you, or any of the other ones on the card, which one is wetting your palate here, bud?
I gotta say, I like James Vick and Nico Price. I think this one's gonna be at 170. I've been campaigning for James Vick to move up to 170 for a long time now. I think it'll be a good spot for him. I think he was really sucking himself out too much to get to 155. Eric Anders and Gerald Mearshart, of course. You got that crazy knockout power and that aggressive pressure of Eric Anders against the grappling ability of Gerald Mearshart. I think that's a really fun fight. I'm really intrigued to see what Mackenzie Dern is gonna do. Like 17 hours after giving birth and getting into cage. I can't get over this, man. I was impressed when I heard Michelle Waterson talk about how she had her first pro fight like 10 months after giving birth. It definitely hasn't been that long for Mackenzie Dern. Yeah. So, man, that's impressive. It'll be even more impressive if she makes weight, which I doubt. But
well, Bill, I agree with Tommaso Mark here. He says that Mackenzie Dern will give her a 9-pound weight allowance, which I'm all for.
That's
one
fair.
One time.
Yeah, if it's within like 2 weeks of having a child, like, yeah, let's give her the allowance here. It's like all the placenta hasn't come out yet. We gotta account for this.
Oh, geez.
There's still a little bit lingering in there. All right, man. I'm excited. So again, if you guys are gonna be at Fight Night 161, I'll be there as well. A lot of the Gracie Tampa team will be there. So come say hello. As always, I love interacting with people who listen to the show on social media in person. Otherwise, just don't show up at my house at 8 in the morning and we'll be okay. One non-MMA related thing, Jeff, I did happen to go and catch a matinee of the new Joker on Friday. And I don't want to give anything away because it is a fairly new film. And you know me, Jeff, I'm not into the superhero films. I don't really like a lot of that stuff. It just doesn't interest me, but I loved this movie.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It was one of the best films I've seen in the theater in a long time. I thought Joaquin Phoenix was phenomenal. I think out of the current actors available, you couldn't have picked a more perfect person to play this role. I know a lot of people were upset. There's something about like there shouldn't be an origin story for the Joker because he should be mysterious and this and that. But if you let all that go, and just look at it as like a piece of art, which it really is. It was a phenomenal performance. The cinematography and the way it was directed, everything about it. I just thought it was amazing. It gripped my attention the entire time. Some people thought it was a slow moving film. I didn't think so. I thought it like really grips you. It was very dark. And yeah, man, just an interesting take on this character. And I thought Joaquin Phoenix blew it out of the water. I really enjoyed it. So highly recommend. But again, if you're into these sort of things, like if you're a big fan of the Batman movies, I'm not. So maybe something that I like, you might not. So take my opinion with a grain of salt if you're really into that kind of stuff. But I liked it because it was real. It's like something that could really happen. And that's really what kind of grasped me about it.
Yeah, and we're getting a little bit off topic here, but I guess it's okay. The Joker, there have been a couple of origin stories of him in the comics, and there's one in particular called I forgot the name of it. I think it's The Man Who Laughs or something like that. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's called The Killing Joke. And in that story, it's basically designed to show how one bad day can drive somebody off the edge. So I'm really fascinated. I wasn't really excited about the Joker movie just because so many people have played him at this point. But I've hearing it from you and a couple of friends who've seen it, it seems like the viewers, the fans who went and watched it, really enjoyed the movie, but the critics didn't. But I mean, fuck the critics. I feel like Rotten Tomatoes doesn't like any movies, so
Yeah.
So I'm probably gonna have to check it out this week. It's like
Rotten Tomatoes lost all credibility when they gave Dave Chappelle's latest stand-up a 0%. That's just absurd. That special was hilarious.
Oh yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, so definitely go see it, Jeff. I think you would really enjoy it. And it really does highlight, you were saying, one bad day could really put someone off the rails. So I'm a big believer in, you never really know what other people are going through and what's going on in their heads. So just be good to each other out there, will you? Try and pick somebody up when you can. Do nice things for people. Just be a good person. Contribute something to society. Otherwise, just fuck off. We don't need you.
I'm all for it, Bill.
So that's my uplifting message of the day. Be good to people or fuck off. And I think we'll end it on that. Big thanks to Mark for the questions. And we love when people interact with the show. We love when people interact with us on social media. So if you want to get a hold of Jeff the Animal Wilson, you can do so at animal_Wilson on Twitter and Instagram. And you guys know how to get a hold of me. It's at MMA on the Rocks everywhere on social media. You can send me an email if you want, MMAonTheRocks@gmail.com. Visit our website. I'm putting a lot of fun content up there. I got some highlights of past interviews going up there now. That I'm slowly adding to, clipping up some old episodes so you don't have to go digging through the thousands of hours of MMA on the Rocks that are available to you on the internet. But if you want to, by all means, go back and listen. Yeah, go back and listen to episodes 1 through 160. I think there's even a couple of 2-parters in there for you guys. So catch up. And in the meantime, I'm going to pour myself another Basil Hayden's Dark Rye, because I'm really enjoying it, and it's rainy outside, and what's better than a nice sweet rye whiskey on a rainy day? Not much, I would say. So for Jeff the Animal Wilson, I'm Bill Welker. Until next time, cheers, everybody. Goodbye.